Okay, if everyone will please take a seat, we're ready to begin with Coach Meyey from Florida. Reminder, please turn your cell phones off. We will have the Q&A session with Coach Meyey, and then at the conclusion we'll have a photo op with both coaches and the trophy, and then we'll continue on with the Alabama media session. Florida will practice at 3 o'clock. Alabama practice at 4:30. First 10 minutes of each session are open to media, and then the remainder of each session will be closed. Okay, we're ready to begin with Coach Meyey. We'll ask him just for a couple of opening comments about his team's preparation for the game, and then we'll take your questions. Coach?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the City of Atlanta, and it's great to be here again on behalf of the Eastern Division of the SEC. And it's hard to put in words the gratification that our team has to make it to Atlanta. That's very simply our goal every year is to compete for a championship with the greatest conference in America, and to have our guys arrive in a plane here in a few minutes and get ready to go practice and play a great team in Alabama. We're all for honored to be here.
All right, we'll take questions if you'll raise your hand, and we'll get one of the floor microphones to you. We'll start right in the front. Franz?
Urban, with the distraction, obviously, it's been a year of distractions. What else is new? But with the distraction of Dunlap early in the week, how was your team able to regain its focus the rest of the week? Were you able to get it to where you needed it to be?
Well, the only way to evaluate is when you go in and watch a practice tape, and we're operating at a very high clip. And I think what happens is when you flip on the film of your opponent and you can see what you're getting ready to go play, your focus immediately, is on the task at hand. That's to get better, a little better each day, and to move forward. And that's what we've done. So I'm very pleased with our practice and our ability to focus this week.
There's another question down front.
Speaking of that, the season of distractions, Urban, you have really endured maybe the toughest season you ever had, maybe as a coach, and all you had to overcome, and everything, including the illness and all the controversy and things. Comment again on what we don't know about what went on inside the team. You guys had a really tough time getting here, and for that reason, this accomplishment is pretty significant, just being in Atlanta.
Well, I think the minute you say the toughest season we ever had, I hope next year's a tough one too, and we're back here in Atlanta, and the year after that. So at the end of the day, the evaluation is real simple. Did you win the game? Did you lose the game? And what kind of people are you dealing with? And we're dealing with a great group of guys. I love to coach. And all our job was each Saturday to do was somehow find a way to score one more point the opponent. To be able to do that with a schedule, with the league, and with the injuries and other things we had to deal with, that just is a testimony. It's a great testimony to the makeup of what we're coaching here.
Question on the right side. Go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, you've been around the country, obviously out west and the Midwest. Can you just talk about the SEC and what makes it's unbelievable what this league has been able to accomplish over the last few years as far as, everything on the field, off the field. Just talk about the SEC a little bit.
Well, in 2006, I believe it was 2006, I remember there was a time where we actually met as a coaching staff and Commissioner Slive and the marketing group and how do we get, because when you look at you just look at the quality of player, the quality of program, every road game here is, amazing. The fan support from top to bottom, I can't think of, and once again, it's not our job to worry about other conferences, but the strength of the Southeastern Conference, I think right now, and at least in this era, is unparalleled. And, there's great ways to evaluate that. And I remember back in 06 where we actually got together as a group of coaches and the marketing people, and we put out all these bullet points about all the success, from the number of players that have the opportunity to go to the NFL, the academic All-Americans, the All-Americans, the teams, the non-conference records. And I remember just looking, we all sat there and went through it. And it's amazing that we had to actually battle for the maybe national respect where maybe one of our teams wasn't going to get into the championship game. And then it's come completely full circle. And I think that's great for football. I think it's cyclical. I remember other conferences when they were at that status, and I'm sure that we just got to keep maintaining. You got to not keep maintaining. You have to keep building, and that's like a program. Florida right now. Florida, we have to keep building and recruiting and working. The Southeastern Conference. The minute you sit and sit back and reflect on how great things are, there's another conference will pass you in a minute. I watched that Oregon State last night. There's nothing better than that now. That was as far as passion. So there's some great conferences right now. SEC's getting tagged as the best, and I know our commissioner and all our coaches and fans are committed to keep it the best. How do you do that? You keep grinding, keep working, keep bringing in great players.
Question in the back on this side.
Yeah, Coach, I was thinking if you keep that spotlight on the SEC, have you ever lifted up your gaze a little bit and thought about how for so long Alabama was the king of Southern football and Florida has really supplanted it, and how tomorrow's game will be who's going to be the king? Long live the king.
I don't know if I've gone that far. I'm a self-proclaimed great historian of college football because I love it. I love Coach Bear Bryant. I watched him. I idolized him. Junction Boys to the first 5, if I remember right, the first 5 Southeastern Conference games, Florida was in it, and they're against Alabama. And that one was in Birmingham when it started, and then it moved to Atlanta. And it's just the history is phenomenal, and I don't want to say I'm overwhelmed to be a part of it, but there's that young part of me that I am a little overwhelmed. When you start mentioning those names and you start talking about the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Florida Gators playing for the Southeastern Conference 1 versus 2 and a right to go play for the national championship, you're probably lying if you're not a little overwhelmed by that whole deal. But our job is not to be overwhelmed. It's to focus on how to go win a football game.
Question on the right side. Go ahead.
Coach, certainly you were here last year, said that you have the experience of playing Alabama. 2 questions. Just interested in how they are different this year and what matchups particularly give you pause or perplex you at the end of the day.
Well, they're a year better on defense because most of those guys are back. I know that one safety I thought was phenomenal last year, number 49. He's not back, but their back end's tremendous, and the Giants inside are, there's so many keys to this game. I've always focused first and foremost on the return game, and they're ranked in the top 10. One's 14th, and I believe one's 6th. Their punt return and kickoff return. So we've done a lot. We've devoted a lot of good players and a lot of good scheme and a lot of good time to how we're going to keep this guy in check because he could change a game. Yes, he changed a game many, many times this year, and that's Javier Ringas. And then on offense, you got the dilemma of you have this quarterback who's now playing the best football of the season, McElroy, and then you have the 2 backs that the minute you focus on stopping the run, they isolate you with 4 and 8, and the 2 great receivers they have. So it's very balanced, and right now they're playing the best football of the year.
Okay, question over here. Go ahead.
Urban, we've talked, going back to 2006, about maybe a lack of respect helped motivate your football team before that Ohio State game. It's something we've seen the Patriots use as motivation for years and years now. Your offensive line has been called out a little bit this week. Obviously, they have a monster challenge on Saturday. We just talk about, is that motivation? Is that something the Pouncey Twins and everybody else is talking about, that people are saying, hey, can we handle their defensive line?
Well, I'll say this about the Pouncey Twins. There's a lot of pride there, and I've not heard that they've been called out, but they're facing a very strong defense line. They're very aware. They played against these guys last year. They've made the comment to me that it's the best defense line they've gone against. But, we'll do our best because offense line's pretty strong as well, especially our interior. And Marcus Gill, our offense line's finally found the rhythm, and the Pouncey Twins are the leader of that group, and it's one of the strengths of our team. So it's going to be strength versus strength, I think.
Is there another question over here? Go ahead.
Urban, Nick Saban said this week that you had called him back in the early 90s when you were looking for a job when he was at Toledo, and you spoke with his wife for a while. Do you remember that conversation? You just kind of bring me back to that time of what you remember about him at Toledo.
I just gave her a big hug. We were at the luncheon together, and that story came up again, and it's starting to catch a little bit of fire, which it's true. It's true in I want to say 1989, I was a linebacker coach, and I made this clear too, not a very good linebacker coach at Illinois State University, and wanted to move back to Ohio, and somehow, some way, there were no cell phones. I got a phone number, and they said, here, call Coach Saban. I called Coach Saban, and his lovely wife picked up the phone, and we had a little chat for about 10 minutes, and I got her. She was sold. She was ready to go, and then I remember telling Shelly at the time, I think she was my fiance at the time, and I said, hey, looks like we're going to Toledo. And the phone call never came back. So I had her, I didn't get him.
All right, question over here. Go ahead.
Urban, with Dunlap's absence, talk about the role that could increase for William Green and what you like about him as a football player.
First I like about him is that he comes from a great family, and he's just got great character, and he's high energy. He's like the Energized Bunny, man. He flip on a switch and he just goes as hard as he can. And on top of that, he's very talented. Justin Trado would be the other one that would get, who's a starter for us anyway. So the roles have increased. There's a guy named Jay Howard, who's a 295-pound guy that we might utilize as well, because we have a little bit of depth in the defensive line.
Hey, question. Do you have one? Cecil in the middle there. Go ahead.
Coach Meyey, you touched briefly on it earlier, but could you talk about what you see different from Alabama offensively under McElroy than you did last year under John Parker Wilson?
Not much difference. Certainly in the back half of the year, I think the middle, they relied completely on number 22, Ingram, and the great freshman Trent. Now I think last week their game against Auburn was classic development of a quarterback and confidence, and he took that team down there to go win that game. So I don't see a whole lot of difference at this point in the team we faced last year.
Question down front.
Urban, could you comment on Xavier Nixon's play and just how vital his play is against Alabama's outside rush?
Yeah, true freshman, came in, and very mature guy, does well in school, and a good guy. And I think it was one of the strategic moves that we had to make, and a lot of it was to strengthen our interior as well. We moved Carl Johnson, who's a 350-pound guy, inside, which has really stabilized our interior because the Pounceys were playing very good football. And Xavier Nixon has performed very well.